Before founding Livefire, Jordan was an impressive creative force in new and social media as a vice president at Current TV and digital creative director at Butler, Shine, Stern and Partners. He speaks and writes widely on social media, new technology, and creative work. Most recently, he was one of the opening keynote speakers of just this last year's South by Southwest Festival. So please join me in welcoming Jordan Kretchmer.
So if you're like me, you're probably wondering why a school dedicated to the arts would pick the CEO of a tech company in San Francisco to give the address. And the truth is that they didn't. I'm actually just a run-of-the-mill 32-year-old designer, arts college dropout, who grew up in a small town in Texas, where the only thing more important than Jesus was football, neither of which I really care for, who just happens to have somehow become the founder and CEO of a 150-person tech startup in San Francisco. But most importantly, I am a designer. No matter what my title is today, I am a designer. I always will be a designer. My path was unlikely and untraditional, and riddled with great success and many, many failures. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to try my best and share a few things I've learned along the way, and do my best to apply them generically to all of you, and hope that at least 2 or 3 of the things from the rambling that's about to ensue strike a chord and stick with you. Technology is not just around us anymore. For better or for worse, it is a part of us. When I was about your age, the first iPod came out, and it was a miracle of science. It held all 1,000 songs you would ever need in your life in your pocket. Today I can access millions of songs from my wrist, and I take it for granted. You are the first generation in history that was born with the internet as a part of everyday life. As you've grown up communicating in ways that I could only dream of as a kid. I used to sit in class and tell my friends that I had turned my TI-89 calculator into a modem so that I could email from it. A wild dream at the time, because Wi-Fi didn't exist. But you had Wi-Fi when you were in grade school. This all has a meteoric effect on what it means to be human today. And I'm going to come back to this later because it plays a vital role in why each of you is so important after you graduate today. Leaving school was the scariest and most exhilarating thing I have ever done. I threw myself into a world filled with possibilities, but also a world filled with even more rules than what I experienced when I was in school. This was disappointing and it was infuriating at the same time, and I'm sure you will all soon feel the same sense of disappointment that the real world is actually more bound by rules and norms than what you experienced here in school, especially at this school. After a few years of angrily and forcibly trying to break all the rules just to prove that I thought they were dumb, I learned the lesson that guided pretty much how I interacted with the world for the rest of my life. So I'm going to give it to you right at the top. The path to accomplishing your goals is paved by creating amazing things despite the rules, not in spite of them. This requires exactly the kind of education you have all received here. One that teaches you how to explore possibilities and use a diverse set of knowledge and experience to get what you want. Excuse me, recovering from a sinus infection or something. The world inherently dismisses artists because the world doesn't like different. It takes perseverance and tolerance of the less artistic people around you in order to break through to them. Don't ever be spiteful or angry towards the people who don't get you. It's not their fault. It will only create more barriers to your success. Doing great things despite the rules is about outsmarting the real world. And you are better prepared than most to do that, even though it may not feel that way today. When I left school, the dean said to me, "You remember this day. It's when you made the biggest mistake of your life." She'd have a heart attack right now if she knew I was up here talking about life to you all. As I think some of these guys are too. They just found out that I dropped out. The truth is, right when she said that, my only thought was I would finally have the ability to experience more failures than just my failure as a student, which I do look at in my life. That was a failure. Failure is where the best lessons come from. In Silicon Valley, there's actually an entire culture of failure. There's a conference for it. I'm not kidding. It's called FailCon. Where prominent founders and CEOs get up and talk openly about how they failed and what they learned. Fail loud, fail proud, own that shit, move on and do something better the next time. As artists, it's really easy to blame everything around you for being ass backwards and broken because what you do isn't easily understood as a lawyer or a hedge fund manager. There's no clear system that you fit into that will scare most of the people around you as long as you live. While it is absolutely correct that the world is ass backwards most of the time, persevere and stay positive through the naysayers and the people who don't believe in you, and there will be a lot of them, like the dean of my school. Part of your talent must be your resolve when you know that you're onto something good. You came here to this school and you are graduating today because you already possess many of the qualities I've talked about, and because you're fearless, you're compulsive, you're strong-willed, and you're wise beyond your years. Especially you, Buddy Man. This place has taught you how to harness all of that to create amazing art. All of those traits stem from your ceaseless desire to experience more things faster, and there are going to be people all throughout your life who are going to call that impatience. I call it aggressive curiosity. It is the feature that sets you apart from everyone else around you. It's what makes you artists. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. All of us misfits and creative types have been forced into a system that wasn't quite built to appreciate what we are all capable of accomplishing until we prove it. They always say prove it. When I set out to raise funding for my business and all I had was my passionate vision and some designs that I did, every single person I met with said prove it. We're not going to give you any money until you prove it. To me, building this company was a foregone conclusion. To everyone else, it's just some crazy guy's vision that only the crazy guy understands. So you have to prove it. People are skeptical of vision because they're not inside your head, and there's no way to measure vision. The system around us is built to measure, built to apply labels and numbers and appreciate the kids with the highest grades, with the most friends, with the most votes for class president. And this made me angry most of my young life. I rebelled against my teachers for giving me C's because I solved the problem the wrong way, or for telling me that real art didn't happen on a computer when I designed an assignment in Illustrator instead of painting. I'm going to get back to the role of technology and creativity and vice versa in just a minute. Before I moved to San Francisco and started my company at age 25, I lived right here in Boston, where I ran a digital creative team at an ad agency. Having lived in both Boston and San Francisco, I've been a part of two very distinctive cultures. One that relishes the values of education and specialization, and one that dismisses it almost entirely. Neither is right, but I'll let you connect the dots on which one is which. I have hired a diverse set of people in both places over a long period of time, and the profile of candidates I see are becoming more and more specialized every year. They are experts in specificity and can recite the rule book verbatim. They have all the right answers, but they have no new answers. They don't surprise you with anything at all. It's all very learned, but it's also very expected. With the path you've taken, it is up to you all to be the surprising ones. Do that and you will stand out from the rest your entire life. When I was first starting my company, I got an email from a young woman named Jenna. She had heard about what I was doing and it connected with her, so she wanted to help. She was straight out of art school, and after a couple of phone interviews, I offered her an unpaid internship. I didn't have any money at the time at all, so everybody was working for free. She shot back immediately. I'm not going to be an intern, but I'll accept a full-time job as a designer and a community manager, and I'll do that for free. Hired. Jenna came to my office/apartment kitchen a few days later with a notebook full of ideas, dozens of them, about how Livefire, my company, could have an even bigger impact on the world than what I had originally envisioned. I had been working with a few engineers for months, and not one of them had ever brought me a single idea. And here's Jenna, straight out of school, with more ideas than I ever had myself. Not only that, but she knew how to design. She knew how to present, no doubt a result of her performance classes she took her senior year. She had a knack for writing. And so she became my first paid employee. I hired her before the engineers, because the value of ideas is immeasurable, and the value of someone who can contribute creativity to every aspect of every endeavor is immeasurable. She spent so much time exploring on her way to finding her final path that she knew a whole lot about just about everything. She still works with me today as a vice president, one of the most important people at the company. This is an important story because some of you will go on to be artists in the definition sense, and some will go on to apply your craft to creativity and creativity to other fields. Both are not just important, but are necessary, because both are responsible for bringing art to life. And for those of you who are looking to leave here and get a real job, remember that story. Be bold and value yourselves highly. Use everything you have learned here to be a Swiss Army knife of ideas and creativity, and bring your art to whatever it is you are doing. You are valuable because you are capable of becoming anything you want, not just what you were taught in school. You have been taught how to identify problems and then solutions using a breadth of knowledge and experience, a multitude of tools, not just one tool set. This is why some of the most important companies in the world were not created by business people or finance people. 1/3 of all Fortune 500 CEOs in the world have an arts education and nothing more. Not a finance degree, not a law degree, and definitely not an MBA. Even the chief technology officer at my company, the guy who built our entire technical infrastructure, got his bachelor in the arts. From his experience there, he decided that his real passion was landscape design, so he went to school for that. And then he became obsessed with how patterns on plants were easily replicated on a computer, so he taught himself how to code and built an application that mapped photographs to points on the Earth using image recognition to recreate entire landmarks by stitching together thousands of photos automatically. Arts degrees aren't limited to just thinking. They're a little bit about discovery. I had him write that for me, by the way. I couldn't process it myself. So another lesson. Apply your creative passion to solving real-world problems. Use it to discover pieces of the world's systems that you can contribute to, or just change altogether. Never limit yourself to your first dream, and you will accomplish things beyond what you think you can, even sitting here today. Now I'm going to talk about what I think is the most important point of all. The value of an arts education in a world of learning that is moving towards specialization and technology. Specialized degrees teach you knowledge. The problem with that model is that knowledge is now a commodity. I can know just about anything I want at any moment. And now I don't even have to take my phone out. I can know anything just by lifting my wrist to my face. Except I have to get my mom for her birthday. Can't figure that one out for the life of me, and neither can Siri. And in 10 years, you won't even need to do that. You'll just think a question and you'll get the answer in your contact lens. But creativity and critical thought cannot be Googled. Art can be replicated by machines, but machines can't create new art and new ideas. Technology's reality is only made of things in the past, and it has no vision of the future. Google an idea that's never existed before, and Google will return nothing. Creativity is the application of knowledge and experience to solve new problems and break new ground. There's no such thing as innovation without art, and technology is useless without creativity. As in the Enlightenment, the creative class, and that means all of you, will become the leaders of tomorrow because creativity is the new currency. San Francisco right now, the level of hope and aspiration is bohemian. Creative people and artists are celebrated as heroes, and the oddballs rule the land. The line between art and technology is blurring to the point of obscurity, and if history is any guide, we can expect it to be the same everywhere in short order. Something that's soon going to fall squarely on your shoulders is how we continue to raise creative people in a world where technology obscures that line. I was having lunch with the head of technology at Crayola the other day. This is a company dedicated to children's creative education for over 100 years. And for 100 years they did one thing. They made crayons. Now as they look to the future, they need to figure out how to teach creativity while also staying relevant to the realities of the changing world around us. So you know what they're doing now? They're building robots. Robots that connect to iPhones. And as kids draw on the iPhone, the robots go around and they draw on the ground in chalk when the kid is drawing on the iPhone, which on the surface might seem a little bit scary and almost sacrilegious, but it's necessary. And I was inspired by the effort they're making to reinvent themselves in the face of technology in order to make sure that they can continue to carry out their charge of teaching creativity, even in the world ruled by ones and zeros that we live in today. Almost done. When we were kids, We didn't concern ourselves with right and wrong. Have you ever asked a kid, little kid, if something is a circle or a square, and when he answers wrong, he just sits there and he giggles at you like you're the crazy one? Kid, don't give a shit if a circle is a circle or a square is a square. Woo! You get it, right? It's only as we get older that the importance of right answers and wrong answers is beat into us with things like standardized testing. But here is the truth about the real world, plain and simple. There is almost never such a thing as the right answer, ever. In reality, the answer to any non-mathematical problem is almost always a sliding scale. Even programmers all choose to execute the same thing in different ways. Some with more code, some with less. But both will get the job done on a sliding scale of rightness. Art is the same way. No two artists would ever represent a scene in exactly the same way, and neither is wrong for that, even though one might be more appealing to some than the other. This is the gray area, and only us humans can occupy it. This isn't the realm of machines, as hard as people are trying to get them there. Earlier today, when I actually tried and said, "Hey Siri, what should I get my mom for her birthday?" she said, "You say tomato, I say tomato." She's not very helpful, because there's no binary answer to that question. The answer lives in the gray, with no right or wrong. Gray is important because gray can become anything. It's why you paint a wall gray before you paint it blue or purple or red. You are all about to receive your degrees in the gray area, which means you are the shapers of new things. You are the ones everyone else will look to forge new ground for humankind, like those who lived in the gray area before you. Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, Salvador Dali, Robin Williams, David Lynch, Richard Scarry. In the gray area, you are never wrong. And there are countless opportunities for success personally and for the world. Creativity is not measurable, it's just gray. There is no universal standard like there is for weight or length, it's just gray. That also means that success as an artist isn't as cut and dry as the more measurable, boring kinds of success. In the gray area, the second you feel successful is the second you become scared shitless that soon you will be found out as a fraud. It's because success for a creative person breeds self-doubt unlike anything else for the same reason that it's so hard to measure, because there is no right and wrong. I feel like a fraud most of the time. I consider it a badge of honor that I hope you will all get to wear in your lifetime as well. 2015 graduates of the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, here is why you are important. Art is in everything. Being an artist doesn't just mean painting or sculpting or photography or design. It's about bringing beauty and humanity to as many things as possible. And this has never been more important in our history than it is right now, when the forces of technology threaten to suck the soul out of every interaction we have. The dehumanization of our world is only stoppable through creativity and through art. Creativity brings humanity to the complexity and machinery of technology. It is why each and every one of you is so vital. You have now been trained to bring humanity to a world that is constantly fighting what it means to be human. I and the rest of the world, whether they know it yet or not, thank you for it. Congratulations, graduates. Here's to a more creative and a much more human world with you in it.